Hi guys, I am Vitold and I'll tell you about all the best things that come with the newest Triumph Tiger 1200. And there are some really strong points, since the bike does an overall fantastic job in making its rider smile and enjoy every trip. And note that this video is showing just one side and it's focused on only the pros of the bike. If you would want to see what may not suit you in this Tiger, because there are some things that might not, please do watch the other video summarizing where the bike can still be improved, putting it in diplomatic words, or what may simply not work for you specifically. It should be linked in the description, or will be linked in the description soon. So no motorcycle and no machine is perfect, so it is a matter of balancing things out and going for what counts for you specifically the most. So let's start off with the first point here, which suits me personally very much, and it's great performance. There is 150 horsepower, so plenty, and lots of torque, because 130 Newton meters of torque. This is a 3-cylinder engine which seems to combine advantages of 4-cylinder ones, like their smoothness, and 2-cylinder ones, like strong low end and pulling power right from the beginning. And I truly am a fan of this particular power plant that is there in the Triumph 1200 now, after spending some time with this motorcycle. But that's not all, because even the best engine can be ruined if gearing doesn't suit you. And I think that here it's pretty close to being perfect, with maybe just the first gear being slightly too long in some circumstances. But this is definitely nothing to be bothered by, and we will all have our perfect spots somewhere slightly else. This one is close to mine, as I like to feel the difference in pulling power and RPM levels between the gears, but I also don't want to have them super short, like in motorcycles with little torque, which have to constantly play with the gear lever to be able to go. I think Tiger 1200 is in the super sweet spot, and I really can recommend this engine to anyone. Also, its riding modes may make it pretty aggressive and responsive when you want it, and much smoother when you prefer it to stay on this side. And I cannot see a better combination of options today in this class. Sound isn't and will not be the best. Of course, that depends on your taste, but it's also not bad even with the stock exhaust on higher revs. Huge point there. The second reason for buying this Triumph Tiger 1200 is the level of comfort that it provides. And let me explain that thanks to this electrically adjustable suspension, you may make this bike pretty stiff and shaky if you like to get rid of some teeth that you're going to get rid of anyway, or race somebody on a perfectly flat racetrack, or you may make it very soft, especially in the rear. And actually it becomes maybe even a little bit too soft, even for me, as it gets very floaty, you know, like a old Rolls Royce, and it takes time to stabilize itself, which is also like an old Rolls Royce. But on the comfort side of the settings, it is very nice to ride, and it never surprises you when you ride over some bumps. It's also a better suspension system than in many other motorcycles in this class, because of the range of adjustment, which is impressive. And also I enjoyed the seat, which surprisingly, against the trend, was not too hard, but rather on the soft side. Also not too narrow, but also not too wide for my own personal bath. And with no hard edges on the sides, so supporting yourself with a leg on a traffic light stop shouldn't at least cause any discomfort. Maybe it is a tiny bit angled forward, but not enough to annoy. The position is upright, so your back will thank you, and your legs will also thank you if you choose the Tiger, as the knee angle is comfortable as well. In my case, I say that simply if I don't feel like I'm cramped when sitting on a motorcycle, that's my definition of being good. The only thing that might require some intervention if you are my size and want it absolutely perfect is installing a bit wider handlebar and choosing one that's reaching slightly further back, so closer to the seat. I felt sometimes that I might prefer this way of sitting to feel slightly more comfortable. But if you are much taller than me, with much longer arms than me at 183 centimeters tall or 6 feet tall, it might be perfect for you already. This is also a super tiny thing that I might just as well skip totally. It's just if I really wanted to pick something, that would be it. But one thing you will have to fix, don't worry, and that's the windshield, which generates a lot of turbulences and should likely be replaced. I think that's what I would do. But that's not anyway the video for this. Other than the windshield, I am very happy with everything comfort related in this new Tiger Triumph 1200. So the suspension, the seat, and the position. Add to that smooth engine if you don't keep it at higher revs, it's steady speed, and it's an awesome blend of all that. And there's a huge point, and it covers 2 out of 4 most important parts in a motorcycle to me. The remaining 2 would be the sound and the overall design. Not sure about the second one here, as the design could be cooler too, but those are very subjective things, so I'm leaving them for you guys to judge. The third reason that may convince many of you, and actually convinces me as well, is a drive shaft in this Triumph. This is showing to me that since most riders who choose motorcycles from this adventure category prefer this solution as it's comfortable, Triumph listens and answers. And that's generally a good sign. And not that many follow, but rather find excuses and stick to chains for whatever reasons. If you choose the big Tiger, you may completely forget about maintenance of its drivetrain, at least in theory, of course. But that's the whole idea of it, to be maintenance free. You don't need to carry a can with lubricant with you. You don't need to spray the bloody chain every few hundred kilometers. And after riding through the puddle, you don't need to stop and spray it again. You don't end up with all the dirt flying around from that chain in that area of the bike. And on top of that, you don't have to check the tension. And I know many of you guys also appreciate that. The fourth point is competent electronics, suspension settings, and riding modes, all of which give you plenty of flexibility when you want it. All onboard systems work fine, and this includes ABS and traction control, digital screen, which is reliable, even though it takes a very long time to load initially, which is a pity, but nothing is perfect. Still, I would appreciate at least a green neutral icon so that I know that I can safely start the bike, as it needs to have clutch pulled in order to start the engine. So riding modes work, and you can have your customized mode. They are pretty clear to understand as well. Choosing yours requires using one dedicated button to select your preferred mode, accept it via the joystick on the same side of the handlebar, and then close the throttle to confirm again. And yeah, it could have been easier, but at least you won't change them accidentally messing with the buttons. Suspension settings are chosen via menu, and there are a few steps, but the extreme stages are impacting the bike visibly, and that's pretty cool. It really changes its behavior. There can be a rear radar mounted in the Explorer version, so the one with a larger 30 instead of 20-liter tank. And if it's as good as the warning about vehicles approaching you from the back on the sides as in Ducati Multistrada V4, then it's going to be good. I haven't tried it in Triumph, as mine was a GT Pro version and not an Explorer, so I couldn't even have it for some weird reason. To sum it up, everything worked as it should in terms of electronics and was quite competent, except for the long loading. The fifth reason to buy this Tiger is that it's good in the corners. It may not be as good, it may not be as agile and nimble when changing directions as at least 2 other competitors, but it's there in the top 3, I think, and it's stable and always predictable, which I value a lot. One thing that provides a lot of fun is that once you've started leaning left or right, it's then very easy to make the bike go deeper or straighten up. Starting the lean requires some initial effort, but then it's very good and encouraging you to have fun, to accelerate and lean even more. Very nice behavior and being trustworthy at the same time. Riding straight at low speeds is not a problem, unlike when riding some other competitors. And also maneuvering at lower speeds is fine. Maybe not the best, but it's still a tall motorcycle with some kilograms up there high. But I don't think that anyone would complain here. The sixth reason to take this bike into consideration is that there are many customization options. First of all, you already have 2 lines to choose from, GT or Rally. GT is more street oriented, while Rally will do better when off-roading, for example thanks to 21-inch front rim. Then you've got a choice of different equipment options like Pro, and on top of that you may go straight to an Explorer if you want a larger 30-liter fuel tank. You may also add some options to all of them. One thing in particular to keep in mind is that if you want to have a rear radar with blind spot monitoring, it's only the Explorers that can have it for some reason, or for no reason. Who knows? I don't like the idea of that, as I would like to have the radar myself, but I don't want to have a bigger fuel tank, as for my riding conditions it's not an advantage. But yes, there are also already accessories to choose from, like heated seats for example, so not bad and plenty of possibilities to configure your Tiger. The 7th point is going to be strong too, as it's about quality that we may see. And by quality I understand two things. Firstly, the visual impression, which is fully subjective, and secondly, how things feel and move. Both of those areas are on the top of the class and comparable with BMW motorcycles, which I consider equally good now with Triumph. With this particular one, all the buttons and switches look good and are consistent, paint is looking strong, and plastics seem solid. The handlebar is moving nicely and is not too thin, and it doesn't bend. Yeah, it doesn't bend, believe it. All elements that you come in contact with are really looking and feeling good. Operating those buttons and switches as well, no matter what type they are, leaves a good impression. Well, maybe just the heated grips button is kind of out of place, and the windshield adjustment bar, or whatever that is, it bends. It may bend if the windshield doesn't want to move smoothly and you've got to use some force. On the other hand, this system works with no additional levers and blockades, and that's why it's got to be harder to operate, so that things don't move on their own, I guess, with a bigger windshield especially. Yeah. This system may be the easiest to use out of all manually height adjustable windscreens. The last generation of Tiger used to have an electrically adjustable windscreen, which I consider a perfect solution, but for some reason they ditched this idea now. Weight savings? I wish they didn't, but whatever. We're back at the starting point. We've got to develop it again. Anyway, the bike feels solid, premium and well made, with Triumph putting enough attention to details in my opinion, and that's another plus. Number 8 on my list is that even though I totally see people comparing this Tiger 1200 with the BMW R1250 GS and choosing it over the GS, I feel that it will still be considered as something at least slightly different, not as popular. So if you don't want to be automatically following the crowd, or to be considered as the one who's following the crowd, and also like something that's there in the Tiger that no other competitor has, you may stand out from the crowd by going with this bike. This is finally again a worth alternative which may win hearts of many riders, with its engine, with its comfort, with its good stability and handling, and not that many weak points. So all in all, even taking into account some of the weak points, I still liked the bike very much, and I can definitely recommend it and still sleep well at night. Just to make absolutely sure that your vision of what a bike worth recommending represents, please do watch the second video on this Triumph Tiger 1200 that presents all the possible flaws and weaker points. So don't get surprised by a different tone that's coming from the hole in my head. If after that video you decide that the things mentioned there are indeed small and they are not significant enough to prevent you from buying this bike, if that will be your conclusion, then I guess that you will have a very solid base to make your decision, seeing both of those perspectives. Of course, go and test ride this bike, but then you will already know what to look at and what to expect. So that's it from me, guys. Go check my Instagram at TheVitold, where I post some new bikes along with some older, funny or crazy or more crazy things from my rides around. And see you there, and bye bye.